welcome back to Contemporary Art Podcast with me, Lisa Fevral, and today we're going to talk about quite a few topics. I actually filmed this episode once before, about like 4 days ago or something like that, and I had to delete it because the audio just decided not to record it. But well, it recorded, and then at the end the program was like, I can't finish this task, so I'm just gonna not save anything, which is really great and did not make me just want to jump out of a goddamn window or anything. But I've been kind of feeling a bit tired recently. I should go see my doc just in case. But I think that honestly, it's mostly just being tired from just how life is going in general. And today I brought this little candle here because I need a bit of energy outside of myself to actually, get on with things and do things, because recently I released a video about the real reason as to why so many young people are obsessed with, being scared of aging and stuff like that, and how a lot of it is mostly from the outside sources. And I don't mean influences online, social media and stuff like that. I just mean like the economy and the way that things are going in general. That anyway, you can go watch it if you want to, but I think that I'm starting to get really tired and I'm getting closer to burnout, so I need to figure out something about regarding that, because I think that a lot of people can relate to this, but only working and not doing anything else and still not being able to do anything or even be stable is kind of really discouraging. And with this particular video, I released it and it did really well at the beginning, and then YouTube just stopped showing it entirely. Like, it literally froze in impressions all of a sudden. And the way that YouTube usually decides whether to show your video or not is based on like how long people are watching it for and how often do people click on your thumbnail when they see it, right? And both of those are fine. So I was kind of confused as to why it froze like that, and it kind of keeps on happening with my channel since at least since the time when the CEO changed. And a lot of people who are below a million mark are saying that they're having the same issues if you've been on YouTube already for a while. So like you have an algorithmic history already. They changed something to the point where it basically doesn't matter what your video performance is anymore. At least for most of my videos, my video can be performing really poorly and my video can be performing really well. And at the end of the day, after a couple of weeks, it's like at the same numbers, because even if it's performing well, it freezes after 3 days or so. So I'm thinking, I don't know if it's just like me being generally discouraged and it's kind of bleeding into everything else in life, because I can't really be doing anything else but work, really, financially speaking. And I don't know if it's that or if there's another issue, like either allergies or some other bullshit. As you know, I have to be seeing oncologists all the time just to, check that everything is okay. So I don't know. I'm just annoyed as hell. And I can't tell whether I'm just tired or if I don't know, you guys. In any case, that's why today we're just sitting with a candle and I'm not doing like blaring lights in the room. It's still light outside, but it's probably gonna get dark as we go along. But I just don't feel like putting on a ton of makeup. I just put lip gloss on and a bit of concealer so I don't scare you with my really dark under eyes. And they're still dark. Don't get me wrong. I'm one of those people who just have really dark under eyes every day. Doesn't matter how much I slept, doesn't matter what I do. It's just kind of like part of my face. And I think that if I wouldn't have been doing video podcasts, I think that my podcast would have been a lot more frequent and on schedule. But at the same time, I prefer video podcasts, just like that's my preference when I listen to podcasts, whatever. Today we're going to talk about a few things when it comes to the arts, some music. First and foremost, I went to a concert. I think it was my first concert since COVID happened, because for me, obviously COVID was a big deal at first, and then cancer happened, so I was immunocompromised, and I still am. I have to be very careful, and if I catch COVID, for example, I have to contact my oncologist immediately, other things like that. In any case, it was my first show since lockdowns and stuff like that, so my first show in 4 years, and I used to love going to concerts, and I still do. It's really strange to think that I haven't been to a venue in like 4 years, but I went to see The Last Dinner Party, and I really, really enjoyed their performance. It's this new band with 5 girls in it. Well, one of them was non-binary, but I love calling everyone girls. Doesn't matter what gender you are. In any case, they performed really well. Honestly, it was really great. The only issue that I had was with the venue. Not the venue itself in terms of like, I like that venue. The problem is the audio engineer really didn't mix the instruments well, and it was such a headache. I think it was especially glaring with the opener, and it was Miss Grit, and she's really good. I really enjoyed her set, but it was really hard to listen to because of how loud everything was. The audio engineer is, I don't know what's wrong with them, because I genuinely don't know how you could not hear how loud everything was. Basically, when you mix a set or a song, you have tons of vocals and you have instruments that are all playing at the same time. And depending on the part of the song, and depending on how many instruments are playing that kind of occupy the same wave space in terms of the audio, where it sits in terms of like the frequencies, you have to mix them in a way that they don't clash. For example, pianos and vocals have the same, like they have a lot of similarities in terms of the frequencies. So you would have to be very careful in the way that you equalize the voice and the piano and whatever, right? And it's kind of the same with a lot of instruments. And I think that what I didn't like was that the set was just so fucking loud. It really hurt my ears, especially the opener. I was there with my assistant, and both of us were like, God damn, like these girls really know what they're doing, and this mixing is really undercutting their impact. I hope that this was just like a venue issue, because usually you have a venue audio engineer. I'm just gonna hope that this was like a one-off for them. But the crowd was really great. It was really fun. I think that there was just like in general a lot of people who came to really enjoy the show. They dressed up in the aesthetic that's like matching the band, and everyone was like, a lot of people pulled out their phones with flashlight on for the ballad, and it was really, really fun. Like, I mean, I think that this was the first time that happened for this band. At least that's what Abigail, their front woman, said, but at least that's what I thought. I might be wrong, but because maybe I misheard it. It was live, you know, but I think that's what she said. And I really, really enjoyed that set. And I want to make a video kind of like the video that I made for FKA Twigs about her album Magdalene. I want to do the same for The Last Dinner Party. I don't know if anyone's going to be super into it, but I just want to analyze the visuals of this era and like this band and their debut, speculate where they're gonna go in the future. Honestly, if you haven't heard their album, if you're a fan of music like Hozier, for example, or like Florence and the Machine, British bands, I think that you're gonna like them. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about Marina Abramović and her works, especially Rhythm Zero. I don't know if you're familiar with Marina Abramović, but I'm gonna give you like a little bit of an introduction. She's basically a performance artist. She is from Yugoslavia. I mean, technically it's Serbia, but she herself prefers to say that she's from Yugoslavia, so I'm going to refer to it as such. She is one of those artists that are from an area of the world that the West is kind of hostile towards. So usually when artists from those places in the world come here and they get recognition, or they can have their own school, or they can perform in big institutions, it's usually most of the time due to the fact that the West perceives them to be as somewhat of like agents of their views. That's the only way you can really exist in the West without them finding you to be aggressive or something. I don't know, but you can see that especially with people who are from the Middle East. If you look at any of the artists that get big in the West who are from the Middle East, or for example people who are from China, it's always the same story, right? Where whenever people talk about them and they talk about their art, they reduce them to government commentary and not even politics. They never actually address politics, because the problem with a lot of conversation, popular conversation and not popular conversation, when it comes to art and media, is the fact that a lot of people are actually extremely uneducated when it comes to political conversations. Oftentimes you're having very pointless conversations because people just say random things. Sometimes they think that their ideology includes everything that they find good, and everything that they personally dislike is like the opposite of their ideology, which is oftentimes not the case, because the amount of times that I've talked to people who thought that incentivization of spending, like here we had a moment in Canada when our officials were kind of like giving speeches and stuff like that about how they want to encourage the middle class to go out there and spend because they have collected a lot of money over the period of time of being in lockdowns, which is not true, by the way, because people were actually struggling during COVID. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but they were kind of like giving speeches about how they want people to go out there and spend. And I remember that some of my friends sent me this links and they were like, isn't that communism? And it's just kind of like, dude, you can't tell me that you seriously don't know that encouraging spending is part of like the system that we have here, like capitalism. Like, how do you not know that? I feel like this is so basic that it's kind of ridiculous that people don't understand the difference. But because they hear that someone is trying to incentivize them to spend or trying to tell them what behavior is the right behavior, they're like, oh, this must be the opposite of what I believe to be good, which is capitalism, right? Which is like, sometimes it's really, really, not even sometimes, always, it's very tiring to be talking to people who don't give a flying fuck to actually figure out the basics of economic or political systems. When it comes to talking about artists and art in general, it is impossible to talk about people and about their art and about their position in the world, especially when they are from a country that is generally, usually portrayed to be problematic by the West. Not like, I'm not saying that they're problematic, the West does. It's kind of like one of those things where people always kind of have to have a counteraction in someone's behavior and beliefs for them to, like an aggressive type, for them to see them as someone who's allowed to have an opinion. So for example, with Marina Abramović, I was looking into her and I found a bunch of people talking about her art, and there was so much toothless reporting and criticism when it came to her art, which was so frustrating to read. And especially you're gonna see it on this website called Art Story, which I use as a reference sometimes to find specific dates and stuff like that. And I kept on kind of running into the same issue with a lot of artists where they would say, like on that website, they would start talking about this artist and about their artworks. And they would never, ever get to a point where they're explaining what that person was actually talking about when it comes to the general statement of their work. So for example, there's this work that Marina has done that was basically her getting in the middle of this star, and I believe it was made out of wood or something like that, and she set it on fire and she was in the middle and she passed out at some point because the air was obviously, used up by the fire around her. And the way that Art Story is talking about that work is basically just like, she was criticizing the communist state that she was living in. And it's like, but what was she criticizing, right? Because when you look at her other interviews, or you look at what she said in other works, you can't really see one message when it comes to this, when it comes to her political beliefs, for example, or economic preferences or whatever the fuck, right? And you're just sitting there like, okay, but look, why do you even mention it at this point? Like, if you don't actually know, if you don't know, just say that, oh, it was this star is a symbol for Yugoslavia, for example, right? If you don't know what she was trying to say, stop there. Like, don't just say random shit. But that's the thing with Art Story in general, is that they never talk about difficult and in-depth topics about someone's artwork. They kind of always glide on the surface, and when they say anything, it's always in the way that a very uneducated surface level finance guy would talk about art. The one who would be sitting there like, but Banksy though, or like, I love Jeff Koons. He talks about, like, it's always the stupidest fuckers. You kind of read what Art Story decided to put under a description for an artwork. And the entirety of it is just like, I guess it's a good beginning point for some artworks, but it will make some people confused and make them think that a lot of artists who are from countries like Eastern Europe, China, any of the Middle Eastern countries, African countries, any of the South American countries, they're just gonna make you believe that this artist is basically constantly shitting on their own culture, their history, everything, and they will never give you context. That's the problem. You will find that a lot of the time when the artist starts to be more specific, which Marina has never done, to be honest, in my opinion. Maybe I have missed something. If you are a fan of Marina's work, let me know. Maybe I have missed something, because this is totally possible, because I'm not usually paying a huge amount of attention to performance art. That's just like not my favorite type of medium. Doesn't mean that it's not good. There's a lot of good works in it, and Rhythm Zero is one of them. But it's just one of those things where you will rarely find any specifics if the artist starts to be more specific about what they like and dislike and what they're criticizing and what they're supporting. Like, for example, with Ai Weiwei, immediately the West is not supportive anymore. It kind of happened the same way with one of the Pussy Riot girls. When she became more clear with her messaging, when she stopped just being this riot girl and she became one that opposes all colonialism, all of a sudden she became not a great investment for the West. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of those, like, for example, there's Pussy Riot right now having an exhibition at the Polygon Gallery here in Vancouver, and most of the time I find the curation of their work and even the way that they are presented in the world to be very disappointing. And I don't know to what extent everyone else in the group believes in, you know, real anti-colonial shit, right? I don't know, because once again, this is a whole other huge topic, right? But if there's anything that actually addresses the issues, if there's any artworks that actually talk about many Western countries and many Eastern countries having a lot of similarities because of being sucked dry of all resources by the oligarchs, immediately the West is like, oh, whoa, we didn't mean actual decolonization. We just meant saying riot and kind of just hoping that the middle class in the West is going to get their kick of riot, of rebellion, and they will shut the fuck up, you know? Because it's just one of those things where you just start to notice over and over and over again how quickly the West switches. It was the same with Ai Weiwei. As soon as he said, no, you know, I don't actually fuck with your imperialist bullshit. I just kind of don't like this particular thing about my government that I criticized, and I'm going to continue to do that because I'm not a nationalist little bitch, you know? But I don't like you either. Immediately there was a problem, right? It's kind of like you can only be a good critic retrospectively. If you actually criticize anything for real and try to change specific things instead of just being in the generals, immediately you become unprofitable for the West, and they kind of stop supporting you, right? So to be a successful artist, in quotations, by successful I mean economically stable, right? Or rich, you would have to be kind of like Banksy, kind of like all of these artists that became the it artists at different points in time, because the West was like, low-key, this is kind of free promotion for us. And for us, I don't mean everyone, I just mean the oligarchs, right? We can invest in them, we can market them everywhere, make their artworks expensive. It's kind of like stock market, basically. You buy something for cheap and then you sell it when it's expensive. It's the same thing with all of those artists. They just basically get picked up when they are nobodies and get circulated around for as long as possible, unless they actually have a point and they stay that point, and immediately you lose, you know, the support of the rich. Regardless of all of that, even though I find this to be a very interesting topic, and interesting in the sense of, you know, discussing why Marina Abramović does what she does and why people talk about her the way that they do. And especially, I would love to talk more about how art story is such a toothless little tool, information tool, I guess. I found out that it's ran, or was created at least, by some finance guy, and I was like, oh, that makes so much fucking sense. Of course, this is so impotent. Of course, this is so pointless. Because this is what many people think art is and what it's supposed to be about. Just a bunch of nonsense, inflating shit for the sake of making it more expensive, and that's about it. In any case, Rhythm Zero is a performance piece that Marina Abramović did in like 1974, sorry. It was a performance piece that she did in a gallery setting, and she was basically just standing there, and she put 72 objects on the table in front of her that ranged from like, you know, food like cake and wine and flowers like roses to things like knives and even a pistol with a bullet on the table also available. And she basically told people, do whatever the fuck you want. For 6 hours, I'm going to be standing here and you can do whatever you want to me. And I take all responsibility for whatever happens, right? So it's going to be completely guilt-free, let's say that way, right? Or responsibility-free. The instructions, I would say, did not imply that anyone should be doing anything extreme. The instructions were very, very short. It was instructions. There are 72 objects on the table that one can use on me as desired. Performance. I am the object. During the period, I take full responsibility. Duration, 6 hours, from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. And at first, it kind of started quite innocent. It was just someone giving her a rose. Someone gave her a kiss on the cheek, which is a little weird, but okay. But it's still like more or less gentle, you know? I'm gonna read you this quote from an art critic named Thomas McEvely, who was present at the gallery at the time for the performance. This is a quote you can find literally everywhere, even on goddamn Wikipedia, but just to give you an idea, it began tamely. Someone turned her around. Someone thrust her arms into the air. Someone touched her somewhat intimately. The Neapolitan night began to heat up. In the third hour, all her clothes were cut from her with the razor-sharp blades. In the fourth hour, the same blades began to explore her skin. Her throat was slashed so someone could suck her blood. Various minor essays were carried out on her body. She was so committed to the piece that she would not have resisted our word or murder. Faced with her abdication of will, with its implied collapse of human psychology, a protective group began to define itself in the audience. When a loaded gun was thrust to Marina's head and her own finger was being worked around the trigger, a fight broke out between the audience factions. And this is one of those pieces that really, I mean, in one way, if you are quite cynical, or not even cynical, but just realistic, immediately you'll be like, oh, this is dangerous. This is a dangerous thing to do a piece like that, because you just don't expect anything good from the public, right? At the same time, it is a bunch of people in a gallery. It's not on the street. So you would just kind of assume that it would be more sane people. No, of course not. Because why would that be the case? The fact that her clothes got cut off, it's kind of like very similar to Yoko Ono's cutting piece. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but she also did something where you could cut things and people cut off her clothes. But specifically with Marina, it was kind of strange because just the thought of it, because the instructions are so tame. The instructions did not suggest anything even, right? The instructions didn't go, try and do the most extreme things you can think of, or try and do something that you wouldn't usually, or whatever it is, or like act on your deepest desires or anything like that. It was quite straightforward and tame in terms of what is suggested to the public, right? Like just saying you can do whatever, this is a performance and I'm the object of the performance, right? The fact that people started to do all this shit, like I just cannot comprehend it. Like if I saw an artist standing in a gallery and I was told to do whatever, I would probably just not do anything, to be quite honest with you. But if I did anything, I'd probably just give her the cake off the table. You're probably tired standing. Do you want a bit of cake or whatever the fuck? it's just really weird. This is what people immediately start to do, like undressing her, putting her on the table, and then someone literally put a knife in between her legs, not like her, in her body, but like they stabbed it into the table in between her legs. Just so many things. It's just so gross. And I mean, technically I'm not surprised, okay, but at the same time I still am, because like it seems people are just really something, eh? This artwork, it definitely starts conversations. And I mean, I think that even though it's kind of depressing, at the same time, the fact that in the audience there was a group of people who kind of started to form a kind of protection squad when they realized that people are starting to do weird shit. It's kind of heartwarming that at least people were like, okay, maybe I shouldn't leave the gallery and actually keep an eye on her because there's so many freaks in here. That's nice. But overall, it's one of those artworks that kind of really underline the grossness of people. And also it's really strange because there were like some people on YouTube making videos about this performance, saying that some woman put a gun to her head, to Marina's head, and put the bullet in there or whatever. And then when you watch Marina's interview, it's actually a man who did that. So I'm not fucking surprised. Again, the pictures from that performance, you can see the gross snickering and stuff like that in people's faces. It's just, yeah, just not great. Another thing that I wanted to kind of mention here, this is going to, it's way too late in the episode to be saying all this. I should have said it in the beginning, but if you are one of those freaks who believe in like weird ass Pizzagate bullshit, get the fuck out. Honestly, I do not have the patience for you. Go talk to somebody else who wants to hear your shit, because I don't. Because the thing is, I genuinely, like, the amount of bullshit that I saw on all the videos that mention Marina is crazy. I do not want to be like, I'm gonna block you. I'm just gonna tell you right away, because I ain't dealing with that shit. I just saw also, why do all of those right-wing freaks always have to come up with the most, like, with just the lamest names for everything imaginable? It's just always something so cringe, like Pizzagate. How much of a loser can you really be? I feel like there should be a limit, yet you keep on crossing it every time. Like, goddamn. Do you know what I mean? Like, why are they coming up with such ridiculous names for things, and then they want to be taken seriously? Anyway, this work is one of those performance art pieces that I think are good. It's very rare in my opinion. And I do want to mention, since I did rip a new one to Vito Acconci at one point in my podcast. You can go back and see that episode. I really dislike that artist. Marina did do a recreation or re-performance of one of his pieces, and the piece that she performed was the one that I hate the most, and it's called Seedbed. Absolutely can't stand that piece. It annoys the living shit out of me, and I have explained in detail why I do not like it in that other episode, but I do want to mention it here because it is important, I think, for me to actually tell you about this, because it would be a little strange if I was like, oh, here's a good work by Marina Abramović, but she actually recreated something as annoying and as horrible as Seedbed. I honestly don't know why the fuck she would do that. If you're a fan and you have heard like some niche interview where she explains it or whatever, I believe that it was one of the 7 performances that she did for her 50th practice year at the MoMA or something. I don't know if it was MoMA or whatever, but it was one of the big galleries. Let me know, because I genuinely do not know why she would do that. Vito Acconci, out of all people, really, girl? Whatever. Let me actually also talk about Hozier for a bit. His album, the last album that he released, Unreal on Earth. It's an album inspired by 9 Circles of Hell, like Dante's 9 Circles of Hell, whatever. This song, technically speaking, is supposed to be about Francesca. There's like a whole story, whatever. But I personally think it's like one of those songs that I really enjoy, but I have a really hard time listening to one of the lyrics because it's like, it uses cancer as a metaphor. And I just get triggered every time, and not because I'm like angry at him or something. No, it just makes me feel anxious. To me, this song, and once again, he talked about it before, about the meaning of it, about the two lovers who commit adultery and they're like in the second circle of hell, and the song is basically being like, I would do this 1,000 times over just to be with you, whatever. And I, for some reason, when I read this song, to me it reads like a song for a person, a partner, or whomever, a lover, who have a, either a disability or like a very serious condition. Because, and this is such a random thing to bring up, but I just wanted to talk about it because I didn't find anyone talking about that specifically. However, people did say that Francesca is not just a complete kind of, just like a story from Dante or just a take on Dante. It seems like it's mixed in with a bunch of different things, and it's more of a inspiration that comes from that story, and then everything else is kind of made by Hozier. So it's not supposed to be read in very literal terms when it comes to Dante, but to me this lyrics really read like that. And that's the only way I can actually listen to that line where it goes, when that part of you was ripped away, a grip taking hold like a cancer that grows, each piece of your body that it takes. Though I know my heart would break, I'll tell them, put me back in it. Darling, I would do it again. If I could hold you for a minute, darling, I'd go through it again. I feel like this is the only interpretation I can come up with that makes me feel a bit more at ease listening to it and it makes it very sweet and romantic in my eyes, at least, because all of us have very fragile physical forms, and I think that the fact that we confront the fragility of it so late in life, by we I mean everybody else, not me, not me, and not those of you lads who have experienced health issues. I'm very lucky to not be dealing with the condition anymore, or to be in a position where my body is like not functioning as like the norm for my age range and whatever. But this song does take on a new meaning if you read it from a perspective of a person who loves someone, finding out that person has developed something or is fighting something when it comes to their physical body. And it just read the lyrics of Francesca by Hozier and let me know what you think. I'm sure there's going to be at least a few of you who are fans of Hozier. His second and third albums weren't as big in my life as his first one, but his first one I was literally 18, going to to bars for the first time and stuff like that, well, legally. And he was like a really big, like Arsonist Lullaby, Sedated, Work Song, Angel of Death, and Cody and Scene or whatever the fuck. All of those were really prominent for me at the time. And it actually makes sense that The Last Dinner Party performed with him a couple of times because they do have something similar. I really do wish that both Hozier and The Last Dinner Party experiment even more in the future. I think that they're really great artists and they can actually handle that. They can actually push to be doing like really freaky shit and really get away with it, I think. But in any case, let me know what you think about that. And my voice is giving out. I will see you guys soon with another one, either video or podcast, whatever it is. Hope you're having a great day. Bye.